MO for YouTube videos. I am a feminist and a lesbian, and I make conversational commentary videos about both of those things. If you've been here with me in the Nuance Corner for a while, you know I've already talked about the subject of today's video a couple times. As always, I just have more I'd like to say. In my original series about Eat Predators, which I thought would be just a one-and-done thing because I thought maybe Alexa Nicholas would stop making me so frustrated on a personal level, I laid out my issues with the Survivor-led collective, which is actually just a vanity project in the interest of a former child actor's personal reputation. This probably might sound a little mean if you haven't already watched those, so I suggest you do, because you can see my willingness to put up with Alexa Nicholas's bullshit fade throughout those. I don't have any of it left now, I'm sorry. I don't feel quite as much of a need to do big, thorough, in-depth disclaimers as I did the first times that I was talking about her. This video isn't a, Alexa Nicholas has been lying about everything all along takedown video, and I don't allow that kind of shit in my comment section. I block very liberally. I'm not here to call Alexa some kind of hysterical faker. I am here to criticize what she does and brandishes as feminism because it's not feminism. So what I would like to do is kind of pick up from where we have left off, give you a little recap of some things that have happened since I thought I was done talking about Alexa Nicholas and since she has returned to the internet. And I say returned because Alexa actually took a break this summer, which is fine. Alexa took a break following myself and a few others criticizing her after the release of Quiet on Set. If it's been a while since you've watched my other videos, Alexa started getting some of her first blowback following the release of that Investigation Discovery docuseries. Both because part of her audience was disquieted by the way that she completely threw her lot in with Drake Bell, fuck Drake Bell, more on that later, but also because of the t-shirts that she attempted to sell, which came across to a lot of people as her capitalizing off of the trauma of the other child actors in Quiet on Set. I am still proud of this joke, I'll make it again. The shirts were the equivalent of, I felt bad about child actors and all I got was this lousy t-shirt. They said, Eat Sickelodian, and they had the big sexy Eat Predators mouth logo spitting out the Nick logo, even though one of the guys in the interview things for Quiet on Set was talking specifically about an experience he had that was uncomfortable where he had to, put stuff in his mouth. Even just aside from I don't like the imagery, I've already talked about this in my other videos. I hate the big sexy mouth imagery for Eat Predators. I don't think it accomplishes what it wants to accomplish. I said that very confidently, and then I realized Eat Predators does not want to accomplish anything other than making Alexa Nicholas look good, so maybe it does. Anyway, I had already spoken about all of that in my initial Alexa series, and especially including the way that she appeared on the Just Trish podcast, despite concerns from her fans about her appearing on that podcast. She talked to Trish about how it was a bot campaign that was saying that the shirts were no good, and that's just not true. I didn't notice any bots saying that. I noticed people saying that. So again, that's covered in my initial video. One thing I didn't cover because I was kind of waiting for it to either play out or not, and then I think thankfully it did not play out. Alexa was, for a while, threatening she was going to do another video in the Guess Who series, but this time about an actual credible journalist who she was angry at because said journalist, Kat Tenbarge, had been covering the harassment of Drake Bell's victims. I've got some screenshots that I will put up on screen. And I also was watching for this to happen. I refreshed a few times because there was a live scheduled on the Eat Predators channel, and then it just didn't happen, and then it didn't happen. She eventually did go live about something else, I believe. If you don't remember from the initial videos, the Guess Who series of videos that she did were a series of lives that were to do defamation, basically, against people who had previously organized with her. This would have been the first time, to my knowledge, that it was somebody who was already a public figure, which I think is probably why she got scared. I don't know. I really, really like and appreciate the work of Kat Tenbarge. I have mentioned her before in videos. I think she's a really phenomenal journalist, and it made me deeply angry to see Alexa coming after her, and especially because the way Alexa was coming after her just made no goddamn sense. Alexa was angry that, Kat had been talking about her best friend, I guess. Best friend meaning Drake Bell. I'm just assuming he must be her best friend because she did throw away all of her, credibility and all of the goodwill that she had amassed just for him. But, Kat Tenbarge has in her pinky finger an amount of, journalistic integrity and courage and actual willingness and ability to side with victims that puts to shame everything that Alexa has ever managed to, clout grasp for. This was always going to be a losing fight. To be completely honest, I absolutely was going to come out of my talking about Alexa retirement to talk about this if it happened. I'm real glad it didn't. Alexa, instead of attacking a journalist who reports for NBC, took a break. I hadn't been expecting that she was going to take a break when I said that I was taking a break in covering her. Obviously, I expected that she was going to continue doing what she was doing and continue frustrating me in the ways I already knew she frustrated me, and that there wouldn't be much new to say. That I had already pretty plainly made my case about Alexa already, which I have. She's not any kind of feminist. She doesn't deserve to be heralded as some kind of movement leader. She has a vanity project that she tries to make you believe is more than it is. So I thought I was done talking about it. My understanding is that her Patreon supporters were not given a heads up before she took this break, and that she neither paused the billing cycle or communicated with them to let them know that she was taking that break, and that the additional benefits, which don't seem to have often been regularly offered with the Patreon tiers, wouldn't be happening at all that month, while things were also not happening on the main YouTube channel. I was already aware that she regularly was not living up to what was promised in the Patreon tier descriptions, especially because the Discord no longer existed, and that was still a listed Patreon tier for a long time. But yeah, she did not pause the Patreon when she took a break. Of course she didn't. Of course she didn't pause the Patreon. The Patreon is money. This is all about money. And I could cut a break for just failing to communicate about the Patreon. I probably would have. I would not have made a video about just that in itself. I think it's shitty. It's not how I run my Patreon, which you could join if you wanted extra videos from me every month, but I wouldn't have made a whole video to criticize just that. So I want to tell you what Alexa did do. What made me so upset that I did make another Google form and ask for some feedback from my lovely Nuance Corner friends here, so that I could catch you all up on what's been going on since she made her return. Because this is, to me, it's one of the more brazen things that she could possibly have done, and yet also, it is so completely unsurprising. It is such a natural escalation of exactly what we were already seeing. I shouldn't have been surprised by this. I have spent hours cataloging Alexa and her lack of actual morals or, feminist beliefs or even ability to care about things that don't directly impact her or that don't, happen coincidentally to be people who are friends with her abuser who she wants to see canceled. Alexa Nicholas, who began her entire feminist career by protesting concerts held by abusive men, went to a Drake Bell concert. VIP went backstage and did it while she was being filmed, because of course she was. Alexa is a hypocrite. She's a big ol' hypocrite. She doesn't care about the pushback that she has gotten. She doesn't care about the fact that this is exactly the kind of thing that she would have been protesting a year ago. She cares about the fact that she can hitch her star to Drake Bell, which she has been trying to do since it came out that he was the big star in the Quiet on Set documentary. Which, she's also mad at the Quiet on Set documentary. Again, we're gonna get to it. That one's complicated because, look, trust me, I don't like Quiet on Set either, and I don't think it should have been nominated for an Emmy, but she and I have different issues with it. However, before I catch you up on that, how about we read some notes from the Nuance Corner? I put this form up a month ago. Keep an eye on community tab posts if you want a chance to participate in things like this in the future. So I first introduced the notes from the Nuance Corner concept in my 3-hour video about Swoop, and I kind of wished as soon as I did that I had introduced it during the Alexa series. So another reason I wanted to loop back around to talk about Eat Predators again, really. This first note says, "Hey Ophi, I've been a longtime subscriber and member of Eat Predators, but my feelings towards it have started to change. In your videos, you've articulated the concerns I was beginning to have in a way that was very reasonable and respectful towards Alexa, mostly, while still being critical about the many questionable things happening with Eat Predators. I say this as someone who still hopes Alexa can be reasonable about the valid criticisms and can grow from them for the sake of Eat Predators, because I believe her heart is in the right place, even if her head isn't always. One thing I wanted to mention that I noticed you haven't covered yet is that I find the way Alexa handles her YouTube memberships to be misleading. She made a community post announcing that she would be taking some time off from YouTube without specifying how long. Many of us were charged the monthly fee during her absence without knowing she was taking time off. Additionally, her membership perks are non-existent. Joining her membership mainly gives access to old live streams, but there aren't any new streams or bi-weekly book club sessions. She attempted a movie night, but it was uncomfortable. She streamed the documentary An Open Secret, which is about victims of child sexual assault, and before it started, she encouraged everyone to get cozy with blankets and snacks, which felt inappropriate given the documentary's serious tone. I'm not sure how big of a deal this stuff is, but it felt weird about it all, especially in hindsight, and it is part of why I stopped my membership. Her misleading perks are blatantly irresponsible, and I feel she avoids acknowledging this to retain membership revenue. I'm very torn about Eat Predators, but I hold out hope that she will take these criticisms to heart and not dismiss them as attacks. I have no idea about the Drake Bell concert she supposedly attended, but that's pretty disappointing. Thank you, though, for the work you put into your videos and for not being afraid to express the nuances." Thank you. I really appreciate that. I thought the mostly was very funny. That's one reason that I wish that I already had the notes from the Nuance Corner form set up, though. I don't know why I assumed that the Discord was the only thing that wasn't being followed through with on Alexa's Patreon tiers. It makes sense to me that it wasn't. Also, much like we spoke about in the swoop video with tone, I agree. I think, I'm pretty off-put by a, grab snacks and get cozy intro to something that's kind of serious. And I also say that as somebody who very much does, like, a hangout vibe, like, we're sitting on my bed talking right now, right? But I really appreciate hearing that from somebody who has in the past paid for an Eat Predators membership. Again, I never have contributed financially. I talked about that in my first video on the subject. I have heard from a few people who had either recently canceled their memberships and then found my videos, or found my videos and then canceled their memberships. I have never asked anybody to cancel their memberships or to not give money to Alexa explicitly, but also it does make me happy that less people are wasting their money on a former child actor's vanity project. So I really appreciate hearing that. If she was doing more and this was not a vanity project, I would not mind people donating to her. But if people are donating just in the hopes that she'll come back and start taking it seriously, maybe you should just donate to an organization that's actually helping victims, because Eat Predators is, as is very clearly documented, not any kind of, official organization. It's a for-profit company. It's for-profit. She's for-profit. The next note here says, "I hate that she gave Drake Bell some slack, but unfortunately I do think she had a point about how if we want to have space to make change, we have to grapple with the victim-to-abuser pipeline, which Drake fits into perfectly. It's uncomfy to think about predators coming into events for survivors, but does that mean they shouldn't? Does ignoring someone's victimhood make it more likely that they'll internalize and strike out at someone in a way that makes them now a predator? There's a lot of social stigma around men survivors, and the patriarchy really fucks them up with it. I don't know, I'm sympathetic and don't know how to make all these ideas all link together in a cohesive way, like for society to emulate while we deal with victim predators." So I kind of think I understand where this Nuance Corner friend is coming from, but I also think that we're missing what the actual issue is. Because, once you become a victim abuser, you're not still a victim in the exact same way that the other victims are there. So I don't think that it's exclusionary to certain victims to have like a code of ethics that people around you and the people who date you should be safe in order for you to access a specific space if the other people there are vulnerable. Like, I don't think, especially given that the entire organization is called Eat Predators, that it needed to bend itself to allow a wolf in sheep's clothing in as soon as one presented himself. And the fact that he did, and the fact that it did, and that at the same time, in the same way, as we covered in my first video about this, Eat Predators did that the same way that Vulnerable did. So I think, I don't know. I just don't really have it in me to hold it against people who were hoping that there was one space that wasn't going to contort itself to suddenly be about the men who do abuse but are sad about something from their past. That sounds really dismissive, but it's how I feel about the situation. My empathy for somebody as a survivor is completely different from what I'm willing to tolerate from them if they are known or proven or have pled guilty in some form to be, recklessly endangering or abusive, as has been alleged outside of court by other exes of Drake Bell. I'm sympathetic to my mother the way that I'm sympathetic to women in patriarchy and the way that I'm sympathetic to people with highly stigmatized mental health disorders. I don't want her in my life, and therefore she isn't. I wouldn't put her in a room full of women who were, like, very prone to be looking for some kind of mother figure, right? I don't know if that makes sense. I think that this is a worthwhile thing to talk about. I don't think that a support of male victims has to include abusive male victims as well, because are we really backbending that hard to include abusive female victims? Not usually. They're usually excommunicated pretty quickly, especially if they're trans women and there was like any kind of interpersonal conflict. We make much less excuse for that than we do for men who have had multiple women come forward with complaints of abuse. Does that make sense? One more nuance corner note here. I'm not sure if she started it out with good intentions and greed got to her, or if she has always been this way. It's hard to have someone who is so damaging to survivors be held on this pedestal to the point where any discourse about her problematic behavior is seen as anti-survivor. I do not question her experience as a survivor, but I do question her qualification and ability to run a survivor movement. She has silenced multiple survivors. She has made videos on survivors without their permission, even people she's friends with. She's withheld funds that she promised to a survivor. She makes hate campaigns against people and invalidates people. I truly believe that she is a dangerous person and is damaging to survivors. I really agree with and appreciate this note, and also just want to say, like, there are so many more people watching and engaging with and agreeing with and backing up the points that I'm making in these videos than I ever imagined. When I first started filming in the middle of the night a couple months ago because I couldn't stop thinking about it, I was like, a few people might agree with me, but I don't think these videos are going to do very well. And I ended up finding so much of my audience based on other people being concerned about exactly this. And I think that that's in equal parts. I don't like that this is happening and that it's bad enough for us all to be concerned about it, but I do really appreciate that there are enough of us thinking about this kind of rationally and carefully and coming to these conclusions. And I even more so appreciate that this is the place where we're doing that. I think Alexa's behaviors have made it pretty clear that she's not looking to take constructive criticism that comes her way, so like, it's more worthwhile to talk about that in a space where we're letting it inform what we do and do not decide to buy into in other areas of our feminism and our activism. That's always what my intention is with these kinds of videos. I always am telling people, like, don't go talk to people about videos I made about them. I like being able to have this conversation here, and even more than that, I know that people may get, like, shot down for having this kind of conversation elsewhere. I don't have a lot more information about that concert that Alexa Nicholas went to beyond what I mentioned earlier, but I will put the screenshots that I was provided on Twitter on screen now. Super, super grateful to the people who sent me these screenshots, by the way. I'm Ophi Dokes on Twitter. I'm kind of over there more often now. I used to never use it, and then I make videos now, so I feel like I need to be plugged in somewhere. As I said before, it seems to be that Alexa went to the Drake Bell concert and then went backstage, which was recorded and reported on online and frustrated a lot of people. She didn't talk about it because she has not talked about Drake again since that one stream about how awful it is that anybody wanted her to speak about Drake, when she kept saying that she was going to do another one about Drake after she took down her initial stream. I highly doubt that she will ever acknowledge this. It's just really stunning hypocrisy. Also, on the topic of Drake Bell, because fuck Drake Bell, like I said earlier, that motherfucker's on a tour. He's doing meet and greets, and he is back in online group chats with his primarily underage fans. So it's good to know that he has learned absolutely no lessons and suffered absolutely no consequences. This is another reason why Alexa and her allegiance to Drake Bell is so frustrating. If the initial belief statement of eat predators was ever still considered in anything that she does, not only would she never have gone to that concert, she would have been the one telling you that one of Drake Bell's other shows with a meet and greet recently got canceled. I don't have any proof that that's directly tied to his whole, pleading guilty for reckless endangerment of a minor. I do know, though, that apparently the venue that he was going to be performing at got a lot of comments from people saying, wow, what a choice to have this guy perform. And then the show got canceled. Funny how that works sometimes. I didn't directly lead that campaign. I don't know of anybody who did organize any such campaign. I think people were just kind of grossed out by him getting a concert venue and reached out. That obviously has not been a successful tactic for every concert on his tour, but I love that it happened for this one. And like I said, it's exactly the kind of thing Alexa used to go live and tell you all about, and now she doesn't. Okay. So now moving beyond the Drake Bell of it all and back into Alexa and Quiet on Set. Like I said before, and like I've made multiple videos about at this point, I don't like Quiet on Set. I think it is borderline laughable that it got a nomination for an Emmy. However, Alexa and I are upset about that at very different angles. So the thing is, most recently about Quiet on Set and this Emmy nomination, Alexa Nicholas was posting on social media about how she and, I guess by extension, although maybe they confirmed it, how she and the other former child actors who were interviewed for the show only found out when they saw congratulatory posts about it on social media. And, I mean, two minds about this, right? On the one hand, yes, that show was not good enough to get an Emmy. If it did get an Emmy, it was based on the interviews that they had from their subjects. But also, of course, Alexa did not get notified ahead of time before things went live that Quiet on Set was doing an Emmy, because Alexa already burned this bridge several months ago. Like, I think that they may have sent her a note, or maybe a basket and flowers, but they didn't, because she went scorched earth on them when they made that extra episode and she wasn't invited. The first time, again, as they made that extra episode, she made a live stream before it came out and cried and said that she felt like everybody who was interviewed in the entire documentary should have been interviewed for the conversation in the final episode. She said, I just think we all should have a seat at the table. That didn't get her what she wanted, because the documentary was always just a PR puff piece for Drake Bell, and it didn't still care about anybody else other than him. And so she changed tack and suddenly was saying, oh, well, you guys made a lot of money, and you made money because we interviewed, so why aren't you paying us? This is exploitative. And she went pretty scorched earth down that route for a while, and then lost track of it, I guess, when she took her break this summer, and thought that after having run a campaign like that against this docuseries, that they were going to, invite her to the Emmys? Maybe Drake Bell gets a seat at the Emmys, maybe. But it's bizarre, and she's trying very hard to directly link it to the exploitation of child actors at Nickelodeon, because that is the only framework through which she knows how to try to milk pity out of people. This is the common theme we've been seeing with Alexa for months now. She identifies somebody as a predator, or in Drake Bell's case, as not a predator. And then she furiously insists that everybody fall into line behind her and accept her interpretation of the situation, even when it is inherently flawed and not lined up with what the reality expectation should be. No interview subject gets paid in this kind of documentary. It just is not how it happens. And furthermore, even if she hadn't known that that's not how it happens from, like, growing up in the industry, she should have known how it happened by the time she signed anything and sat down to film in that big ball gown or whatever, right? So yeah, I think quiet on set is exploitative and gross, but I also think even a good non-exploitative documentary doesn't always bring along all of its interview sources with it to the Emmys, and it's kind of a weird expectation that they would. A weird expectation that she is setting because she knows that people will just believe her that that was a reasonable thing for her to want. And the way she's framing this on her social media with pictures of the Zoe 101 cast going to the Emmys, trying to draw that parallel between the exploitation she feels from this docuseries that she agreed to be in as an adult to this show that she was in as a child on a network that we know has had huge issues with abuse and cover-ups of abuse. And the abuse that was covered up was a lot more extreme than anything she's ever directly alleged happened to her. I think Alexa Nicholas gets a lot of her clout by allowing people to fill in a lot of blanks and assume that maybe she had a story that was closer to Drake Bell's than it was at the time of being in Zoe 101. This is borne out a little bit more in my other videos on the subject, but it just still feels really striking, as does the fact that she came back and did her first live stream back right after Ariana Grande had spoken about quiet on set, and she did another clickbait thumbnail to make it look like Ariana Grande was on her podcast when she wasn't. I watched about half of the live stream that she did when she came back, and I just didn't even have enough to say about it to work it into the script here. There is something else going on that I want to talk about with Alexa, but I think I'm going to wait until she actually does that live stream, if she actually does it. She's decided to throw her political weight behind Jill Stein, and explicitly said in her post, where before she made an endorsement, she was just saying that she wouldn't be voting for Kamala. She was like, we don't have to listen to toxic people, and it's toxic to say that there are only two options. She's claiming that it's gaslighting to be told that that's unrealistic. Jill Stein is a grifter. Like, I know we may not all be on the same page about that, but I don't know what else to make of her fundraising to try to, like, contest the results of the election when everybody else knew there was no hope. I'm sure for Alexa, another Trump candidacy is super survivable, and that's why she put in that little "we won't succeed at first, but" in her Instagram post, but I think that that is incredibly fucking irresponsible of her. I don't think that she's somebody who should be looked to for political advice, and especially not for any kind of indication of how you should or should not act on your morals. So if she actually makes a video about that, I will respond to it, and I will fact check her, and we will talk about how it is, in fact, incredibly possible to have deeply held morals that go beyond what you have the option to vote for or not at the ballot box. Jill Stein is just kind of not an option for serious people, not for serious people who actually intend on beating Donald Trump. I'm sorry if this is how you're learning that I'm a normie lib. I will always vote blue. But especially to endorse anything other than that right now, with the exception of, like, Eileen Miles' protest run, which Zoe Leonard wrote I Want a Dyke for President about, I literally don't think we have ever had a more explicitly feminist Democratic candidate. And rather than just keeping her mouth shut, Alexa explicitly went out to go get the clout that she knew that she would get from the other leftists who like circle jerking about how great it is that they don't want to vote. My take is, and always has been, if you feel like you are too far left to vote for the Democrats, you should kind of just suck it up and be grateful that somebody on your side can swallow that pill. Or else otherwise your issue is that you want to punish the Democrats with Donald Trump, and you really don't respect that the way that I respect somebody who has politics that extend beyond the electoral booth. But barring knowing what Alexa's actual stance is, besides her talking points on Instagram stories, I don't have much more to respond to that other than just to say, holy shit, it made me mad. She makes me mad. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if now that I have a better microphone, you want me to do another take at like dumping all of the information from those first 4 Alexa videos into one. I don't know. I wouldn't do that unless people told me that they would watch it, but like if you would watch it, I might do it. I don't know. Let me know what you think, if there's anything that I missed, if you want me to check in on anything else Alexa is doing. I probably will if she continues to run her mouth. I love you very much. I am doing research for other videos, but if you have any ideas for anything you would like me to talk about, I have a suggestion form below in the description, or you can just comment on this video or any of my community posts, really. I love digging into things with you all, and I will be here to do that again very soon. If you want more videos from me, as I mentioned earlier, I have a Patreon where I upload extra videos every month. If you're looking for a way to support me financially just as a one-off thing, I also have a Ko-fi and a GoFundMe where I'm trying really, really hard to not lose my apartment. Thank you so much to everybody who has donated to that and to everybody who has supported me on the Patreon through Ko-fi by sharing my videos. It means a lot to me. I really love having at least this one place where I can come and talk and hang out with people. Making videos is the best thing about my life. I love you all very much. I already said that, I think.